The first time I saw my little brother sob into my boyfriend's shirt, the room was so quiet, I could hear the old courthouse clock grinding through each second. I remember thinking that if Everett asked me to marry him right there, with mascara dried under my eyes and family staring daggers at us, I would have said yes before he finished the question. My name is Zara, I am 27, and I manage leases for a property company outside Tulsa, which mostly means I spend my days sounding calm while other people panic. At home, calm was harder. My mother had spent the last year fighting our father in family court after he tried to bounce in and out of my little brother's life whenever it made him look good. Knox was only 7, all soft cheeks and careful smiles, the kind of kid who lined up his crayons by color and still believed adults meant what they said. The morning everything started, our kitchen smelled like buttercream and cinnamon candles, and my mother was standing on a chair taping blue paper stars above the dining room arch. She had been up since dawn frosting cupcakes, wrapping little prizes, and checking the weather every 10 minutes because Knox had asked for a backyard movie night with a projector, beanbags, and a treasure hunt instead of some loud rented place full of strangers. He had just transferred to a new school after the custody mess got ugly, and he wanted this birthday to be the thing that made the other kids remember him for something good. He stood by the table in a paper crown, smoothing the stack of hand-drawn clue cards he had made himself. They had tiny pirate ships on them because he was in a pirate phase and refused to call it a phase. Do you think they'll like the map? He asked for maybe the 10th time. My mother looked over with that brave smile she wore when she was exhausted and determined not to let him see it. Baby, they are going to lose their minds over the map. I kissed the top of his head on my way to the coffee maker. They better. You worked harder on this than I work on my taxes. He grinned. You hate taxes. I do. Deeply. That made him laugh. And for a second, the house felt light. The kind of light that tricks you into believing bad people can only do so much damage before life corrects itself. Everett showed up around noon carrying folding chairs in one hand and a bag of ice in the other. Tall and steady and unfairly handsome in a faded gray shirt. He was not loud. That was one of the first things I loved about him. He never entered a room trying to own it. He just made things easier inside it. My father hated him for exactly that reason. Tell me what still needs doing, Everett said, setting everything down by the patio door. My mother, who trusted almost nobody anymore, actually exhaled when she saw him. Projector screen in the yard, then maybe convince this birthday commander to eat something besides frosting. Knox ran straight to him. Can you help me hide the last clue? Everett crouched so they were eye level. Only if you swear not to fire me when my pirate skills disappoint you. You can't be fired on birthdays, Knox said solemnly. That is an excellent policy. I watched them head outside together. Knox talking so fast his words tangled. Everett listening like each one mattered. My chest did that quiet, dangerous thing it always did around him, softening in places I had kept guarded for years. Then my father arrived. He did not knock. He never knocked. He came through the side gate in a pressed polo with his wife trailing behind him, both of them wearing the smug expression of people who thought showing up counted as love. He carried a giant toy box under one arm like he expected applause for it. My mother went still. You were told the party started later. He smiled at her without warmth. I'm early. Try not to make that a crime too. His wife, Greer, put on her syrupy voice. We just wanted to see the birthday boy before things got chaotic. Knox had stopped in the middle of the yard, his shoulders, which had been loose all morning, tucked in toward his ears. I stepped forward before my mother could. You should go. My father ignored me. He always liked pretending I was still 17 and powerless. I brought him something nice. God knows what kind of budget party you put together over here. My mother's mouth tightened. Take it and leave. He laughed once under his breath the way he did when he wanted witnesses to think he was the reasonable one. You really love drama. Everett came back through the patio door with Knox beside him and took in the scene without asking for a summary. He moved to stand near us, not in front, not performative, just close enough that I could feel the shift in the air. My father noticed. That him? He said, looking Everett over like he was pricing lumber. The replacement hero? Everett's voice stayed level. I'm here for Knox. Of course you are. Everyone gets points for playing nice with the kid. Knox stared at the toy box. Is it for me? The question cracked something in me because it was hopeful. Careful, but hopeful. My father turned instantly warm. That was his ugliest talent. It is, buddy. Come here. He opened it with a flourish. Inside was the exact remote control truck Knox had circled in a catalog at Christmas, the one my mother could not afford after legal fees gutted everything. Knox's face lit up. My mother closed her eyes for half a beat like she had been slapped. I knew the move. My father never gave without reaching for control in the same motion. Say thank you, Greer chirped. Thank you, Knox whispered. My father ruffled his hair, then casually said, you can keep it at my place for when you start staying weekends again. The yard went silent. My mother said very softly, that is not happening. He straightened. Judge hasn't ruled yet. Because you keep delaying. Because you keep poisoning him against me. Knox's hand slipped off the truck box. His eyes moved between them, small and frightened. Everett stepped in then, still calm. This is not the day. My father barked a laugh. Stay out of family business. Then stop making the kid carry it. That landed. My father's face sharpened. Greer folded her arms. Honestly, this is why people talk. You let boyfriends play house and then wonder why Knox is confused. There it was. Public humiliation, neat and poisonous. I felt heat flood my face. My mother took a breath that looked painful. Knox stared at the grass. Everett did not raise his voice. The only confusing thing here is why two adults thought a custody threat threat was an appropriate birthday present. For one gorgeous second, Greer had no answer. My father recovered fast. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Everett glanced at the truck, then at Knox. "Actually, I do. Gifts that come with conditions aren't gifts, they're bait." Knox's eyes filled immediately. He looked from the toy to my father like something inside him had finally lined up in a way children should never have to understand. "I don't want bait," he said, voice wobbling. My father's expression changed, not to guilt, but annoyance. "That's not what I said." Knox stepped backward. "You always say stuff nice first." The words were tiny. They hit like bricks. My mother covered her mouth. Greer snapped, "That is your mother talking through him." And that was when Knox started crying. Not loud. Worse. Those hurt little breaths a child makes when he is trying not to break in front of the people who keep breaking him. He ran straight past both of them and crashed into Everett, burying his face in Everett's shirt like he had known all along who was safe. Something in me went absolutely still. Everett wrapped one arm around him and rested his other hand on the back of his head. "Hey," he murmured. "You're okay. You don't have to take anything you don't want." My father looked embarrassed, which for him meant angry. "This is ridiculous." "No," my mother said, finding her voice at last. "This is what you do." Greer started in again, loud now, saying words like unstable and alienation and inappropriate male influence, throwing legal phrases around like she was auditioning to be believed. The neighbors on either side had begun drifting outside under the excuse of checking their mail. I could feel the social pressure building, the familiar family court theater where whoever sounded calmest got mistaken for truth. Everett kept holding Knox and spoke to him, not the adults. "Do you want to go inside with your sister and pick the movie snacks?" Knox nodded against his chest. "Then that's what we're doing." I took Knox's hand and led him through the house. His palm was damp and shaking. In the pantry, he finally looked at me with tears dragging down both cheeks. Did I do bad? It took everything I had not to fall apart. "No, baby. You did honest." He cried harder after that because honest was heavier than bad. I sat on the pantry floor with him until his breathing steadied. From outside, voices rose and fell in ugly bursts. My mother, my father, Greer, a gate slamming, then silence. When Knox had calmed enough to sip juice, I left him with coloring pages at the kitchen island and stepped back outside. My father and Greer were gone. My mother stood by the patio table, gripping the back of a chair so hard her knuckles had blanched. Everett was gathering the clue cards that had blown across the grass. "What happened?" I asked. My mother let out a brittle laugh. "Your father wanted to know whether the neighbors heard Knox call his gift bait. And Everett suggested the whole block probably heard the part where they used a birthday party to pitch visitation." I looked at him. He shrugged once, almost apologetic. Then my mother handed me her phone. On the screen was a message from my father already playing victim. "I hope you're happy. Knox was excited about my gift until your boyfriend poisoned the moment. If this gets shown in court, remember who turned a child against his father." I read it twice, then a third time because beneath the self-pity was threat. Not loud threat, legal threat, reputation threat. He was setting groundwork again, trying to turn a child's distress into evidence against my mother. Everett leaned over my shoulder just enough to see. "Did he send anything before this?" My mother frowned. "What do you mean?" "About coming early, about bringing the truck, about seeing Knox alone." She blinked and opened the thread. There they were. A string of messages from late last night and early this morning. My father insisting he had a right to give Knox his main gift privately. Greer suggesting that maybe if Knox got emotional, it would show the court how deeply he missed that side of the family. My mother refusing. My father pushing anyway. I felt cold all over. Everett's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "Screenshot all of it. Email it to yourself and your attorney." My mother looked at him, then at the phone, then back at him like she had just found a beam under a collapsing ceiling. "You think it matters?" "It matters that they planned contact around optics," he said. "It matters that they tied a gift to future overnights. It matters that they expected a reaction." My mother did not cry often. Legal battles had dried something out in her, but I saw her eyes fill then, not from helplessness this time, from relief so sharp it hurt. The party still had to happen. Kids would be arriving within the hour. Cupcakes were frosted. Treasure clues were hidden. The projector screen shimmered in the breeze like none of this had happened. I wanted to cancel everything. I wanted to drive to my father's house and break every smug plate Greer owned. I wanted, childishly, for the world to punish bad people in real time. Instead, Everett handed me a roll of tape that had fallen off the table. "You want the hard truth?" I swallowed. "Always. They were trying to make him cry," he said quietly. "Now we make sure it counts for the right reason." I stared at him. He nodded toward the house where Knox was bent over a coloring page, trying very hard to be brave before his guests arrived. "We give him his birthday. Then we give your mother the truth in a form nobody can twist." That was the moment the day split in two for me. Before that sentence, Everett had been my boyfriend, the man I loved in all the private ways love grows. After it, he became something steadier. Someone who did not just comfort pain. Someone who understood what to do with it. The first guest knocked exactly 20 minutes later, and with her came her mother, then another family, then another. Laughter began threading through the house. Shoes piled by the door. Coats hit the bench. The movie snacks disappeared by fistfuls. Knox pasted on a smile that was almost real. Then another micro crack opened. One of the moms, a woman from school named Sienna, pulled me aside near the punch bowl. Her voice dropped low. "I need to tell you something before this gets weird later." My stomach dipped. "What?" She glanced toward Knox in the yard, then back at me. "Greer messaged a couple parents this morning saying there might be a family issue here today and the party could be canceled. She said she was trying to save people the drive." For a second, I could only stare at her. Who did she send that to? At least 3 of us. us, maybe more. I only came because Knox was so sweet when he invited my son himself. A hot, furious pulse moved through me. My father had not just tried to wound the day, they had tried to empty it. Across the yard, Everett was helping kids line up for the treasure hunt, one hand shading his eyes from the sun, the other holding Knox's clue map like it was official business. He looked over at me once, and maybe something in my face gave it away, because his expression changed. The party music kept playing, children kept laughing, but under all of it, a new track had started, quiet and ruthless, and I knew, with a certainty that settled right into my bones, that this birthday was no longer the only thing being saved. Everett crossed the yard before I could move, reading my face the way some people read weather. He did not ask what was wrong in a dramatic whisper or make me repeat it twice. He just stopped beside me, one hand loose at his side, and waited until I could speak. Sienna said Greer messaged parents this morning, I said. Told them there might be some family issue and the party could be cancelled. His eyes went flat in a way that always scared the right people. Did Sienna keep the message? She said she did. Good. That was all he said, but it landed in me like a switch clicking on. Knox was tugging on his sleeve a second later, asking if pirate captains were allowed to sprint during treasure hunts, and Everett turned to him with a smile so gentle it made my throat ache. Only the best ones. So the hunt started. Kids tore across the yard shrieking over clues Knox had drawn himself. My mother passed out juice boxes with hands that still shook a little. I held paper plates and smiled until my cheeks hurt. On the outside, the party finally looked like the day Knox deserved. On the inside, I was keeping count of every quiet betrayal that had tried to ruin it. The first small reward came fast. Sienna forwarded me the screenshot while her son was crawling under a folding table pretending it was a pirate cave. Greer's message was carefully worded, exactly the kind of polished manipulation that thought it was too clever to be called ugly. Just a heads up, there may be tension at the house today due to an ongoing custody misunderstanding. I would hate for the children to arrive during an uncomfortable family scene. We are trying to protect Knox from more emotional confusion. More emotional confusion? I stared at that phrase until my hand tightened around my phone. They had staged the discomfort, then warned people about the discomfort they staged, and somewhere in their minds that still counted as caring. Everett looked at the screen and nodded once. Send that to your mom too. She's trying to get through the party. She can get through the party and still preserve proof. He was right, and I hated that calm competence was attractive under any circumstance, but there I was, half furious and half falling in love harder in the middle of a pirate-themed birthday. I forwarded everything to my mother and slipped my phone into my pocket. She read it by the grill while pretending to check the hot dogs. Her mouth went thin, then thinner. When she lifted her gaze to mine, I could see it. Not panic this time, not even shock. Alignment, the kind that comes when separate pieces of harm finally show themselves as one machine. We got Knox through presents, cake, and the backyard movie without letting the adults' war spill over the edge. He laughed for real when one of the kids got tangled in a sleeping bag and rolled downhill like a dropped burrito. He made everyone sing happy birthday twice because he liked the first version and wanted to conduct the second. He fell asleep against my shoulder before the credits even finished. Sugar sticky, hair sweaty, utterly spent. After the last family left, the quiet hit hard. Paper plates sagged on the patio table. Half-popped balloons dragged along the fence. The projector screen fluttered in the night breeze. Blank now, like the house had finally exhaled. My mother carried Knox to bed. Everett stacked chairs. I stood in the kitchen, rinsing frosting off a knife and trying not to imagine what else my father had already begun telling people. When my mother came back down, she set Knox's crown on the table like something fragile and important. I called my attorney, she said. I turned. Tonight, she answered. My mother gave a tired, humorless smile. Apparently, family court lawyers do not keep healthy hours. Everett leaned against the counter, listening. She wants every message, every screenshot, every witness name. She said if Greer contacted parents to interfere with the party and there are receipts showing your father planned a private emotional confrontation, that supports a pattern. A pattern, not a bad moment, not a misunderstanding, a pattern. I felt relief and rage arrive together. Then my mother added, your father already emailed the school. That snapped the room colder. What? I said. He wrote the principal saying Knox had an emotionally unstable outburst at a family event and asked that the school counselor be aware in case alienation symptoms continue. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. This was his reputation front, community front. If the court angle weakened, he would lay down a trail elsewhere. School staff, neighbors, church friends, anyone who preferred a calm lie over a messy truth. Everett straightened. Did he copy anyone? The principal replied and copied the counselor. Good, he said again, and this time my mother almost laughed from disbelief. You keep saying good to terrible things? Because terrible people get sloppy when they think they're early. I looked at him. What are you seeing? He held my gaze. He is building a narrative too fast. That means he thinks speed will beat scrutiny. My mother sank into a chair. So what do we do? Everett did not answer right away. He went to the sink, washed his hands, dried them carefully, then came back like he was organizing shelves in his own mind. Tomorrow, he said, you email the principal. Calm tone, no accusations. You say Knox had a distressing interaction with his father involving a conditional gift and adult discussion of custody during his birthday party. You mentioned that several school families attended the party, and one has already provided evidence that Greer warned parents away over a supposed family incident before it happened. Then you say you want the school to have complete context so Knox is supported accurately, not through partial information. My mother stared at him. You've done this before? His face changed, not much, just enough.
Not this exact thing. There was history there, and I knew better than to pull on it in front of my mother. Later, maybe, privately. For tonight, he continued, save everything in 3 places. My mother nodded slowly. And the attorney? Gets it first thing in the morning. No one raised their voice. No one threatened revenge. We just moved. Quiet, organized, deadly in the least dramatic way possible. Screenshots were sorted. Parent names were listed. Times were noted. My mother forwarded emails while I labeled files. Everett made us tea at nearly midnight, like we were studying for an exam. None of us wanted, but all of us had to pass. That should have been the end of the day. It was not. At a little past 11, there was pounding on the front door. Not knocking, pounding. My mother froze with her mug halfway up. My body reacted before my thoughts did. Everett was already moving, but not toward the door. Toward the hallway where Knox slept. He lowered his voice. Stay here. I followed him anyway because staying still has never been my gift. The pounding came again, then Greer's voice, loud enough to wake half the block. We know you're in there. This has gone far enough, my mother whispered, horrified. Is she drunk? Everett glanced through the side window and exhaled once through his nose. Your father's in the car. Coward, of course. Greer kept going. You have no right to poison a child against his own family. Open this door. My mother's face had gone pale. She wants us to react. Then we don't, Everett said. That was the calm compliance piece, and it felt almost impossible. Every nerve in me wanted to swing the door open and say the kind of things you cannot unsay. Instead, Everett took out his phone, opened the camera, and began recording from inside, catching the time through the window reflection and Greer on the porch in full theatrical motion. He did not narrate. He did not taunt. He just documented. She pounded again. I brought the truck back because Knox should have it, unless you've taught him to hate gifts too. My mother made a small wounded sound. Then from the stairs came a sleepy voice. Why is she yelling? We all turned. Knox stood there in dinosaur pajamas, hair mussed, one hand gripping the banister. His lower lip trembled before anyone answered. Greer heard him through the door and raised her voice into fake sweetness. Knox, honey, I brought your present back. He flinched. I started toward him, but Everett got there first, kneeling on the stairs so Knox did not have to look down at anyone. Hey, he said softly. You're okay. Knox looked at the door, then at Everett. Did I do something wrong again? Again, that word went through me like glass. Everett shook his head. No, a grown-up is making a bad choice outside. That belongs to her, not you. Knox's eyes filled. He whispered, I don't want the truck. You do not have to take anything, Everett said. Not toys, not yelling, not blame. Knox stared at him for a long second, then stepped down and folded himself into Everett's arms. Everett held him like the answer had always been simple. Protect first, explain second, never reverse them. Behind us, Greer kept ranting. My father stayed in the car. And that was the moment. Not flashy, not cinematic in the obvious way. Just my little brother clinging to the man who had never once made him earn safety. I knew then that whatever came after this night, I was not letting go of Everett. The next morning detonated faster than expected. That week, the court restricted his unsupervised contact pending review. Greer was ordered to cease direct outreach to school families. The truck stayed in their garage, where it belonged. Knox did not understand the legal language, but he understood one thing. No one was coming to our door to make him cry again. A week later, Everett came over with grocery bags and a small cardboard box tucked under one arm. What's that? Knox asked from the table, where he was drawing sharks and party hats. Everett set the box down. Something I found from a guy at the rec center. Inside was a used remote control truck. Not the expensive one. Not shiny. Better, somehow. The paint was a little scuffed, and one wheel had a blue marker line on it. Knox stared. For me? No conditions, Everett said. Except maybe you let me help build a ramp. Knox launched himself at him so hard Everett had to catch the chair with one hand to keep it from tipping. I looked at my mother. She was smiling in that quiet, stunned way people do when life finally gives something back without asking for blood first. Later that night, after Knox was asleep and my mother had gone upstairs, Everett and I stood on the back porch under the weak yellow light above the door. The yard was finally clean. No balloons, no evidence, just cool air and the soft hum of the highway far off. You knew what to do before any of us did, I said. He looked out into the dark. My dad liked to create scenes and then blame everyone for reacting to them. I learned young that truth survives better when it's stored. I turned toward him. You never told me that. You never had a reason to need it. I reached for his hand. I do now. He looked at me then, really looked, and something settled between us that had been moving toward this for a long time. I meant what I told Knox, he said. He doesn't have to take blame that belongs to adults. My throat tightened. Neither do you. He smiled a little, tired and real. You sure about that? Yes. I stepped closer. And I'm sure about something else too. He waited. I laughed once under my breath because suddenly I was nervous, which felt ridiculous after everything. Watching you hold my family together while my father tried to tear it apart was not good for my ability to act normal. That got a real laugh out of him. Then he kissed my forehead, slow and careful. Good, because I've been trying very hard not to propose in the middle of a custody disaster. I stared at him. He winced. That came out less smooth than I planned. I started laughing, half from shock, half from relief, all of it messy and genuine. So that was planned? Not the timing. He reached into his pocket, then stopped. Actually, no. After this week, I refuse to attach important things to chaos. He drew his hand back out empty. When I ask you, it'll be on a day nobody can stain. It should have annoyed me that he did not do it right there. Instead, it made me love him even more. 3 months Months later, after the court made the restrictions longer term and Knox had stopped checking the windows every time a car slowed outside, Everett took us to the small lake north of town for a picnic. Knox was racing the used truck over tree roots like it had been his forever. My mother was barefoot on a blanket, eyes closed in the sun for the first time in what felt like years. Everett handed me a paper plate, nodded toward my brother, and said, "He looks lighter." "He is. So are you." Then he reached into his pocket again. This time there was a ring. Not at the courthouse, not in a fight, not in the wreckage of someone else's cruelty. In daylight, in peace, in a life we had protected hard enough to deserve. I said yes before he finished the question. When we told Knox, he looked between us and asked, very serious, "So he gets to stay forever?" Everett crouched to his level the same way he had that birthday. "If that's okay with you." Knox threw his arms around both of us and shouted so loud a flock of birds lifted off the water. And that was my favorite part of all of it. Not the ring, not the court order, not even watching my father's story collapse under the weight of his own messages. It was this. My little brother laughing in the sun, no tears anywhere near him, holding a toy with no strings attached while the man I loved stood beside us like he had always been walking toward home.